Get on the ground now. The shout tore through the late afternoon air so sharply that conversations stopped mid-sentence and shopping bags froze in people's hands. In the center of the parking lot outside Arlington Commons, under a pale Virginia sky, Marcus Reed stood beside a dark blue sedan with both palms visible and his shoulders relaxed, while 3 police officers surrounded him as if he were the most dangerous man in America. Car engines idled. A grocery cart rolled loose across the pavement. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed and faded. But in that moment, every eye was fixed on Marcus. Officer Daniel Hayes stepped forward first, jaw tight, hand resting near his holster, confidence pouring off him like heat from asphalt. "I said down," he barked again. Marcus did not move quickly. He did not argue. He did not raise his voice. Instead, he looked at Hayes with a calm expression that seemed almost out of place in a scene built on panic. "Officer," he said evenly, "I'm complying." The words only seemed to irritate Hayes more. "You were resisting," Hayes snapped, loud enough for the growing crowd to hear. "You matched the description and refused commands." People murmured. Phones were already out. A teenager standing near a pickup truck held his camera high, capturing every second. An elderly woman by the crosswalk shook her head, but said nothing. In America, silence had learned how to survive. Marcus slowly lowered himself to one knee, careful, deliberate, never taking his eyes off the officers. His navy jacket brushed the pavement. His pressed white shirt was now streaked with dust at the cuff. He looked less like a suspect than a man interrupted on his way to something important. Officer Ryan Cole moved behind him with handcuffs ready, eager, almost rehearsed. "Thought you could ignore us and walk away?" Cole said. Marcus answered with the same steady tone. "I asked why I was being stopped." Hayes gave a short laugh. "There it is. Always a speech." The crowd shifted uneasily. A little boy near the sidewalk tugged on his mother's sleeve and whispered, "Mom, why are they mad at him?" She pulled him closer and stared at the ground. Marcus noticed the child. For the first time, something flickered behind his calm eyes. Not fear, not anger, but exhaustion. The kind carried by someone who had seen this scene too many times before. Hayes circled toward the front of Marcus's car and glanced at the body camera clipped to his chest. He straightened his posture, suddenly aware of the lens. Subject became confrontational during lawful contact. He said loudly, narrating for the record. Officers used standard procedure. Marcus almost smiled. It wasn't amusement. It was recognition. He knew a performance when he saw one. Wind moved across the lot, lifting scraps of receipt paper and carrying the smell of rain from miles away. Store employees stood just inside the glass doors, pretending to organize carts while watching everything. Marcus's wristwatch caught the light as Cole reached for his hands. It was a simple watch, elegant but understated, the kind worn by people who did not need attention to prove value. Hayes noticed it too. "Nice watch," he said with a smirk. "Must be doing well." Marcus said nothing. He simply turned his head slightly toward Hayes and spoke 6 words so quietly the crowd had to lean in to hear them. "Please call the White House switchboard." For one full second, the parking lot went still. Then laughter broke from Officer Cole first, sharp and careless. Hayes grinned wide enough for everyone to see. "Yeah," he said, "and I'm the president." Marcus lowered his eyes, patient as stone. Somewhere above them, thunder rolled across the clouds. Thunder rolled again, closer this time, as if the sky itself had paused to listen. Officer Daniel Hayes folded his arms and took one slow step toward Marcus Reed, enjoying the laughter still hanging in the air. "You hear yourself?" he asked. "The White House." Officer Ryan Cole chuckled beside him and shook his head. "Man watches too many movies." A few people in the crowd laughed nervously, not because it was funny, but because uncertainty often borrows the sound of humor. Marcus remained on one knee, hands visible, posture steady. He did not react to the mockery. He did not defend himself. He simply looked at Hayes with the patience of a man who understood that some people only recognize truth after embarrassment introduced it. "You should make the call," Marcus said quietly. Hayes leaned down slightly, voice low enough to sound personal, loud enough for cameras to catch. "You are in no position to give instructions." He nodded toward Cole. "Search him." Cole stepped forward eagerly, reaching toward Marcus's jacket pocket, but paused when he noticed the calm expression on Marcus's face. There was no panic there, no desperation, no bargaining, just certainty. It unsettled him more than anger would have. He pulled a wallet from the inside pocket and opened it. Several cards sat neatly arranged beside a folded photograph. Cole flipped through them with careless speed until one card made his hand stop. The smile left his face for half a second. "What is it?" Hayes asked. Cole recovered quickly and snapped the wallet shut. "Probably fake." He tossed it onto the hood of the patrol car. Marcus glanced at the wallet, then back to Hayes. The call would be faster. Hayes straightened, annoyed now. He hated calm people. They denied him the emotional reaction he expected. "You think you can bluff your way out of this because you sound educated?" he said. "That works on some people, not me." Marcus's expression did not change, but an older man near the curb lowered his phone and frowned. He had heard enough to understand what kind of stop this had become. Inside the shopping center, automatic doors opened and closed as customers slowed to watch. A barista in a green apron stood frozen beside the cafe entrance, apron strings fluttering in the wind. The entire lot felt suspended between two versions of reality, the one officers were narrating and the one everyone could see. Then Hayes' radio crackled. Dispatch asked for status. Hayes pressed the button. "Situation under control," he said. "Detaining subject for noncompliance." Marcus lifted his eyes slightly. "That statement is false." Hayes ignored him and clipped the radio back on. The first raindrops began to tap against windshields and pavement, soft and scattered. Marcus looked toward the darkening sky, then back to Hayes. "You still have time to handle this." "Professionally." Hayes laughed once, short and sharp. "I am handling it professionally." He reached for the wallet himself, opened it, and pulled out the same card Cole had seen. The seal at the top was official. The paper stock was not cheap. The name read Marcus Reed. Beneath it were words Hayes did not immediately understand. He read them twice. Senior Executive Liaison. Temporary Access Authorization. Federal Complex Entry Tier. Hayes felt something small and cold move through his stomach. He looked up quickly. Marcus watched him with the same unreadable calm. "You can print cards online now," Hayes said, but the confidence was thinner than before. Marcus nodded toward the radio on Hayes' shoulder. "Then verify it." The crowd sensed the shift before anyone spoke. Laughter had disappeared. Phones lifted higher. Cole glanced at Hayes, waiting for direction. For the first time since the stop began, Officer Daniel Hayes looked like a man who realized the ground beneath him might not be solid after all. Rain spread across the parking lot in thin silver lines, darkening the pavement inch by inch. No one moved to leave. Shoppers stood beneath awnings, employees pressed near windows, and drivers remained inside parked cars with engines running, watching a moment that had become larger than any traffic stop. Officer Daniel Hayes stared at the credential in his hand as if it might change if he blinked hard enough. "It does not prove anything," he said, but even he could hear how weak it sounded. Marcus Reed remained kneeling, jacket damp at the shoulders, expression composed. "Then confirm it," he replied. Officer Ryan Cole shifted his weight uneasily. He had joined enough scenes like this to know when confidence was leaking out of the room. Hayes looked around and noticed the phones pointed at him from every angle. He hated that. Cameras turned authority into evidence. He shoved the card back into the wallet and tossed it onto the hood. "Dispatch can verify after transport," he said. "Stand him up." Marcus raised his eyes slowly. That would be another mistake. Hayes clenched his jaw. "Everything with you is a warning." "No," Marcus said. "With me it is an opportunity." Those words landed differently than the others. Calm. Measured. Certain. A woman near the crosswalk whispered to her husband, "Who is he?" He shook his head. Someone they should have listened to. Hayes grabbed his shoulder radio and pressed the button harder than necessary. "Dispatch. Run identity verification. Name Marcus Reed." Static answered first, then a tired voice from Central Communications. "Spell last name." Hayes gave it. There was a pause, longer than normal. Then keyboard sounds. Then another pause. Rain tapped steadily against the patrol car roof. Cole looked toward Marcus, then away. The little boy from earlier stood under his mother's umbrella now, still staring. "Why is that man still on the ground?" he asked. His mother had no answer. Dispatch returned. "Unit 12, confirm date of birth." Hayes frowned. "We do not have one." Marcus spoke before Hayes could continue. "June 9th, 1982. Hayes glared at him, then repeated it into the radio. Another pause. This one stretched so long that even the crowd sensed something had changed. A gust of wind moved through the lot, carrying the smell of wet asphalt and distant thunder. Then dispatch came back, voice sharper now. Unit 12, stand by. Supervisor notification in progress. Hayes lowered the radio slowly. Supervisor notification? Cole repeated under his breath. Hayes ignored him. Marcus finally rose from one knee to stand, not hurried, not dramatic, simply dignified. Cole instinctively stepped back to make room. Hayes noticed and hated that even more. Stay where you are, Hayes said. Marcus adjusted his jacket sleeve and looked directly at him. I have stayed exactly where you placed me. Somewhere in the crowd, someone muttered, damn. The automatic doors of the grocery store opened again, and a manager stepped outside, pretending to check carts while listening closely. Every small sound felt amplified now. Windshield wipers, dripping gutters, a shopping cart rattling loose in the wind. Then Hayes's radio erupted with a different voice entirely. Female. Controlled. Urgent. Officer Hayes, this is Captain Laura Bennett. Do not transport the individual. Do not. Continue search procedures. Do not make any further statements on scene. I am en route. Hayes went pale beneath the rain. Cole stared at him. Captain Bennett? Hayes pressed the button. Ma'am, with respect, subject was non-compliant, and, no, Bennett cut in sharply. You will listen carefully. Is Marcus Reed there right now? Hayes looked at Marcus for a long second. Marcus said nothing. Yes, Hayes answered quietly. Bennett's next words froze the entire scene. Then you are about 60 seconds away from the worst day of your career. The rain came harder now, drumming on car roofs and streaking across phone screens, but no one lowered their cameras. People stayed because they could feel it, the invisible turn that happens when arrogance meets consequence. Officer Daniel Hayes stood motionless with the radio still near his mouth, Captain Laura Bennett's last sentence echoing louder than the thunder above them. 60 seconds away from the worst day of your career. Officer Ryan Cole swallowed and looked toward the road leading into the plaza entrance. What does that mean? He asked quietly. Hayes did not answer. For the first time since the stop began, he seemed smaller than the uniform he wore. Marcus Reed buttoned his jacket with slow, dry precision despite the rain. There was nothing theatrical in the gesture, yet it carried more authority than Hayes's shouting ever had. You should uncuff the narrative before it hardens, Marcus said. Hayes frowned. What is that supposed to mean? Marcus glanced at the crowd, then back at him. Once people watch a lie long enough, they begin calling it procedure. Several bystanders exchanged looks. A woman under the pharmacy awning nodded to herself. She had heard enough to know exactly what he meant. In the distance, tires hissed on wet pavement. A black city-issued SUV turned into the lot faster than conditions recommended and came straight toward the flashing patrol lights. It stopped abruptly beside the scene. Captain Laura Bennett stepped out before the engine fully settled, umbrella forgotten, rain soaking her dark coat within seconds. She moved with the sharp pace of someone who did not enjoy being summoned by incompetence. Her eyes went first to Marcus. Mr. Reed, she said, voice controlled. I apologize for the delay. Then she turned to Hayes. Remove every restriction. Now. Hayes stiffened. Captain, we had probable cause. Subject refused commands and stop speaking, Bennett said. Not loudly, not emotionally. Yet the sentence cut cleaner than any yell. Hayes fell silent. Cole immediately stepped back 2 full paces. Bennett held out her hand toward Hayes. Your body camera. He hesitated only a second too long. Now. He unclipped it and placed it in her palm. She then looked at Cole. Yours as well. Cole obeyed instantly. The crowd murmured. Phones lifted even higher. Marcus said nothing. He simply watched, expression unreadable, rain collecting along the shoulders of his jacket. Bennett handed both cameras to a uniformed sergeant who had exited the SUV behind her. Chain of custody begins now, she said. No one touches footage. No one edits reports. No one discusses this scene off record. Hayes tried again, voice thinner than before. Captain, with respect, who exactly is he? Bennett turned slowly. The reason your next month is about to become paperwork. A few people laughed before quickly going quiet again. Even humor knew this was serious. Bennett faced Marcus once more. Sir, I was informed your call had not yet been placed. Marcus checked the time on his watch. I preferred to see whether professionalism would arrive on its own. Bennett lowered her eyes for a brief second, understanding the insult beneath the courtesy. It should have, she said. She reached into her coat, removed her personal phone, and offered it with both hands. Marcus accepted it calmly. Hayes stared as if the world had slipped out of alignment. The same man he had spoken down to minutes earlier was now being handed a captain's phone like a visiting dignitary. Marcus dialed from memory. No hesitation. No contact list. No searching. The lot went almost silent except for rain and distant traffic. Then someone answered on the other end. Marcus's voice remained level. Good afternoon. This is Marcus Reed. Please inform Deputy Chief of Staff Eleanor Grant that I am delayed due to a local misunderstanding. Hayes's face drained of color so quickly it seemed impossible. Around him, every camera in the parking lot kept recording. No one in the parking lot spoke while Marcus Reed listened to the voice on the other end of the line. Rain fell steadily, turning the painted lane markers into blurred white streaks, but the silence around him felt sharper than the weather. Captain Laura Bennett stood with both hands clasped in front of her, posture straight, eyes lowered just enough to show respect without drawing attention to it. Officer Ryan Cole looked from Marcus to Hayes and back again, like a man watching a bridge crack beneath his own feet. Officer Daniel Hayes did not move at all. He simply stared. Marcus nodded once into the phone. Yes, ma'am. Arlington Commons. South lot near the grocery entrance. He listened again, then answered with the same calm precision that had unnerved everyone since the stop began. No injuries. Only delay. Another pause. Then his expression changed slightly, not softer, but older somehow, touched by fatigue. I understand. He handed the phone back to Bennett. She would like to speak with you. Bennett accepted it immediately. Yes, ma'am, she said, turning a few steps away. Her voice dropped, but not enough to hide the tension in it. Yes, I have secured the scene. Yes, body cameras are in custody. Yes, witnesses remain present. Hayes swallowed hard. Witnesses. The words suddenly sounded dangerous. Around them, people who had once looked like bystanders now looked like records waiting to be reviewed. A delivery driver inside a white van lowered his window and adjusted his phone angle. A woman with grocery bags under the awning zoomed in. Even the teenager near the pickup truck had stopped smirking. This was no longer entertainment. It was evidence. Marcus bent to retrieve his wallet from the hood of the patrol car. He dried it carefully with a handkerchief from his pocket before placing it back inside his jacket. Every motion was measured. Every second reminded Hayes how little control he had left. Sir, Cole said quietly, almost surprising himself with the word. Marcus looked at him. Yes. Cole hesitated. I did not know. Marcus studied him for a moment. That sentence has followed many moments in American history. Cole lowered his eyes. Hayes finally found his voice. You set us up. Marcus turned slowly. No. I parked my car and walked toward a store. Hayes stepped forward before stopping himself. You knew who you were dealing with. Marcus's gaze did not waver. I knew who you believed you were dealing with. The sentence landed harder than anything said that day. Bennett returned, phone still in hand. Rainwater ran from her hairline to her collar, but she seemed not to notice. Mr. Reed, Deputy Chief of Staff Grant asked that you proceed when ready. Transportation is 5 minutes out. Hayes blinked. Transportation? Bennett ignored him. A federal vehicle is en route. Marcus checked his watch. Then I still have 4 minutes. He looked across the lot at the small crowd that had gathered in silence. Some looked ashamed, some angry, some simply tired. That is enough time to tell the truth. Hayes stiffened. Captain, I need representation before any statement. Bennett looked at him with open disappointment. For once, Officer Hayes, this moment is not about what you need. She turned to the sergeant beside her. Separate both officers. Collect written timelines now, independently. Cole obeyed before being asked. Hayes did not move. Now, Bennett repeated. He walked away stiffly, as if each step cost pride he could not afford to lose. Marcus watched him go, then glanced toward the little boy still standing beneath his mother's umbrella. Their eyes met briefly. The child gave a small wave. Marcus returned it. Then distant headlights cut through the rain as a dark federal sedan entered the lot, and every person there understood that some careers do not end with sirens. They end in silence. The federal sedan rolled through the rain with no siren, no flashing lights, and somehow that made it feel more serious than any patrol car in the lot. It stopped beside Captain Laura Bennett's SUV, engine humming softly, headlights reflecting across wet pavement like twin search beams. Two men in dark suits stepped out first, followed by a woman carrying a slim leather folder beneath her coat. They moved without hurry, the way people move when the room always waits for them. The crowd parted instinctively. Officer Ryan Cole stood several yards away under escort, writing his statement on a damp notepad balanced against the hood of another unit. Officer Daniel Hayes remained near the patrol car, jaw clenched, rain soaking through his uniform while no one offered him shelter. Marcus Reed watched the sedan arrive with the same calm he had shown all afternoon. If anything, he looked relieved that the delay was finally ending. The woman approached first. Mid-40s, composed, sharp eyes that missed nothing. She extended her hand. Mr. Reed. Angela Mercer, Office of Presidential Operations. Marcus shook it once. Thank you for coming. You should not have needed us to. Her gaze shifted briefly toward Hayes, then back to Marcus. That was enough to make Hayes look away. Mercer turned to Bennett. Captain, I will need all body camera footage, dispatch logs, and responding officer reports preserved immediately. Bennett nodded. Already in motion. Mercer gave the slightest approving glance. Good. One of the men in suits walked toward Hayes and introduced himself too quietly for the crowd to hear. Hayes responded louder than necessary. Am I being detained? The suited man answered with professional calm. No, officer. You are being documented. A few people in the crowd exchanged looks. The phrase spread through them like electricity. Marcus stepped aside as Mercer opened her folder. Inside were printed schedules, access lists, and a briefing packet marked with federal insignia. She checked her watch. Mr. Reed, the Education Equity Roundtable began 12 minutes ago. Then I owe 6 principals an apology, Marcus said. Mercer allowed herself a faint smile. They insisted we wait. Apparently, you were the keynote. Murmurs moved through the crowd. The teenager with the phone whispered, Keynote? The older man near the curb answered without taking his eyes off Marcus. That means they stopped the meeting for him. Hayes heard it too. His face tightened as the truth kept arriving in pieces too heavy to carry. Bennett stepped toward Marcus. Sir, for the record, may I ask your role? Marcus glanced at the rain, then at the people still watching from under awnings and inside cars. Senior Liaison for Civic Trust Initiatives, he said. My office works with cities on policing standards, youth investment, and constitutional training. Cole stopped writing mid-sentence. Even Bennett seemed stunned for a beat. Hayes let out one short breath that sounded like disbelief colliding with regret. Marcus continued, voice even. I was here to meet a local superintendent before the White House session. I parked, walked 20 feet, and became a threat. No one laughed this time. Mercer closed the folder. Mr. Reed, vehicle is ready. Marcus nodded but did not move yet. Instead, he turned toward the crowd. Rainwater slid from his sleeve as he spoke clearly enough for everyone to hear. Please send your videos to Internal Affairs and the City Review Board. Not because of me. Because someone without a phone number like mine may stand here tomorrow. The words settled over the lot heavier than the storm clouds above. Several people lowered their eyes. Several lifted their phones higher. Hayes finally spoke, voice rough and small. Mr. Reed. Marcus looked at him. Yes. Hayes searched for language that could survive what had happened and found none of it. I made a mistake. Marcus held his gaze for a long second. No, Officer Hayes. You made an assumption. The mistake came after you trusted it. Then he entered the waiting sedan, and the door closed with the quiet sound of power leaving. The federal sedan pulled away through the rain, its taillights fading into the gray afternoon, but the weight it left behind stayed in the parking lot. For several seconds, no one moved. Officer Daniel Hayes stood beside his patrol car as if motion itself had become dangerous. Water ran from the brim of his cap and down the side of his face, yet he made no effort to wipe it away. Officer Ryan Cole remained under supervision, pen in hand, staring at the half-finished statement he no longer trusted. Captain Laura Bennett looked across the gathered crowd and saw what every leader fears most, witnesses who had stopped believing. Scene remains active, she said firmly. Anyone with video footage will be contacted by investigators. Please remain available if approached. Her words were professional, but the damage around her was human. The grocery store manager finally stepped forward from under the awning. Captain, he said carefully, my exterior cameras cover this whole lot. Bennett nodded once. Preserve all footage immediately. Already done. The man glanced toward Hayes, then away. Even courtesy had limits now. Two internal affairs investigators arrived minutes later in an unmarked sedan, carrying dry folders and the practiced expressions of people who spend careers walking into messes others create. One approached Hayes. "Officer, surrender duty weapon, badge, and vehicle keys pending review." Hayes blinked as if he had misheard. "Pending review?" "On the spot." The investigator's voice stayed neutral. "Yes." Hayes looked toward Bennett for rescue, but found only disappointment. Slowly, stiffly, he unclipped the badge from his chest and placed it in the investigator's hand. The crowd did not cheer. That was the crueler punishment. They simply watched. Cole was next. He surrendered everything faster, almost gratefully, like a man hoping cooperation might shorten shame. Bennett signed preliminary suspension forms on the hood of her SUV while rain dotted the paper. She did not ask anyone to hold an umbrella. Some moments should feel uncomfortable. Across the lot, the little boy from earlier tugged his mother's sleeve again. "Are the police in trouble?" he asked. She knelt beside him and answered honestly. "They are being held accountable." The child nodded as if filing away a new vocabulary word. Hayes heard it. His shoulders sank lower than the weather could explain. An investigator opened the rear door of the unmarked sedan. "You are not under arrest," he told Hayes, "but you are required downtown for recorded statements." Hayes looked around one final time. The phones, the faces, the store windows reflecting his own image back at him. "This is because of who he knows," he muttered. Bennett's head turned sharply. "No," she said. "This is because of what you did when you thought no one important was watching." The sentence cut deeper than the suspension. Hayes entered the sedan without another word. Cole followed in a separate vehicle. Engine started. Doors shut. Careers, once loud, now moved away in silence. Rain softened to a mist. The crowd slowly began to disperse, carrying groceries, children, umbrellas, and a story they would repeat for years. Bennett remained alone beside the patrol cars until her phone vibrated. A message from Angela Mercer contained one sentence only. "Mr. Reed has arrived on time." Bennett read it twice. Then she looked at the empty space where Marcus had stood on one knee less than an hour earlier. Same pavement, same rain, different truth. She thought of how close the city had come to writing another false report, another ordinary lie filed under routine procedure. She looked toward the road where the federal sedan had vanished and whispered to no one. "We keep mistaking calm for weakness." Thunder rumbled far away now, moving on to another county. Bennett removed her cap, let the mist hit her face, and gave one final order into her radio. Department-wide notice. Effective immediately. Mandatory bias review, camera compliance audit, and public conduct retraining. Starting tonight. Sometimes karma did not arrive with noise. Sometimes it arrived as policy. By 7 o'clock that evening, the rain had cleared and the city had already begun telling the story in 100 different ways. Clips from the parking lot spread across phones, televisions, and kitchen tables. Some videos showed the shouting at the start. Others captured the moment Captain Laura Bennett arrived. The most replayed clip was the quietest one of all, Marcus Reed standing in the rain, asking for a call no one believed mattered. At police headquarters, fluorescent lights hummed over a building that suddenly felt older than it had that morning. Officers walked the halls more softly. Conversations ended when supervisors approached. Doors that usually stayed open were now closed. In a second-floor conference room, internal affairs investigators reviewed body camera footage frame by frame. They watched commands given before. Explanations. They watched assumptions become language. They watched confidence collapse the moment names and titles entered the scene. One investigator removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "This is textbook," he said. "No," replied another. "Textbooks would be cleaner." Down the hall, Officer Ryan Cole sat alone with a paper cup of untouched coffee. He had completed 3 written statements and corrected 2 of them after being confronted with video. Every version had become smaller than the truth. Across the corridor, Daniel Hayes waited in a separate room, tie removed, uniform shirt wrinkled, badge gone. Without metal on his chest, he looked like what he had always been beneath it, just another man responsible for his own choices. Captain Laura Bennett entered carrying a thin folder. She closed the door behind her and remained standing. Hayes tried first. "Captain, this can still be managed." Bennett looked at him for a long moment. "That sentence explains more than you realize." She placed the folder on the table. Inside were suspension notices, witness summaries, dispatch logs, and a request from the city manager for immediate review. You did not have a suspect, she said. You had a man walking to a store. Hayes leaned forward. He was confrontational. Bennett opened a tablet and played the footage. Marcus standing still. Marcus asking why he was stopped. Marcus complying. Hayes looked away before the clip ended. You were offended, Bennett said quietly. That is not the same as threatened. In another part of the city, Marcus Reed stood beneath warm lights in a federal conference room, now dry, jacket pressed, notes arranged neatly before him. School principals, community leaders, and agency staff sat around a long table waiting for him to begin. Angela Mercer introduced him simply. Thank you all for your patience. She did not mention the parking lot. She did not need to. Marcus stepped to the front and looked around the room. I apologize for my delay, he said. I was participating in today's topic more directly than expected. A few people smiled. Most understood immediately. He continued. Trust in public institutions is not lost in dramatic moments. It is lost in ordinary ones. A stop, a glance, a tone, a decision made too quickly because someone looked familiar to a stereotype. Pens began moving across notepads. Heads nodded. Outside the conference room windows, Washington glowed in the distance. Back at headquarters, Bennett signed the final recommendation before midnight. Termination proceedings for Hayes, disciplinary referral for Cole, mandatory department reforms, independent oversight review. She set down the pen and exhaled slowly. On her desk sat a printed still image from the body camera footage. Marcus Reed standing calmly in the rain while everyone else performed urgency. She turned the photo face down. Near midnight, Hayes exited the building carrying a cardboard box with personal items and no audience left to watch. The parking lot was empty. No cameras. No crowd. No one to blame. He paused beneath the dark sky and heard only wind moving through the flag above the station. Some men lose careers in meetings. Others lose them the moment they decide dignity belongs only to themselves. 3 weeks later, the parking lot at Arlington Commons looked exactly the same. Cars rolled through painted lanes. Shopping carts clicked across the concrete. Parents hurried children toward automatic doors. A delivery truck backed into a loading zone while someone complained about the price of eggs. Ordinary life had reclaimed the scene with the efficiency it always used. But some places remember what happened there, even when the pavement does not. Near the grocery entrance, a small bronze plaque had been installed by the city council after public pressure and a vote no one expected to pass unanimously. It was simple, almost understated. This site reminds us that dignity must never depend on status, title, or who someone knows. A few people stopped to read it each day. Most kept walking. Lessons are offered to everyone, but accepted selectively. Inside a renovated training room at police headquarters, rows of officers sat through the department's first mandatory civic trust seminar. Cameras on. Phones away. No one exempt. Captain Laura Bennett stood at the front beside a projector screen displaying a still image from body camera footage, rain, flashing lights, and one man standing calm in the middle of confusion. You have all seen this, she said. Some of you have judged it. Some defended it. Today we study it. The room stayed silent. Bennett clicked to the next slide. Assumptions, escalation, language, accountability. Authority is tested most when nothing dramatic is happening, she continued. A person walking. A question asked politely. A tone you do not like. That is where character begins or fails. In the back row, Officer Ryan Cole took notes without lifting his head. He was still employed under probation, stripped of field authority, assigned to administrative review and community hours. Shame had done what discipline alone could not. Across town, Marcus Reed returned to Arlington Commons wearing the same navy jacket, dry-cleaned and pressed. He carried no entourage, no government vehicle, no announcement of arrival. He parked, stepped out, and walked the same 20 feet toward the store where everything had changed. Some recognized him immediately. A cashier near the front entrance straightened and whispered his name. An older man by the carts nodded with quiet respect. Marcus acknowledged both with a smile that asked for no ceremony. He entered the grocery store, bought coffee beans, bread, and a carton of milk, then stepped back outside into warm sunlight that felt kinder than the rain had. Near the plaque, he noticed the little boy from that day standing with his mother. The child recognized him first. You are the man from the storm, he said. Marcus laughed softly. That is one way to describe it. The boy looked up seriously. Were you scared? His mother began to apologize, but Marcus gently waved it away. He crouched to the child's eye level. Yes, he said, but being scared and being silent are not the same thing. The boy thought hard about that answer. Did you win? Marcus stood again and glanced toward the street, toward city buildings, toward a world still learning slowly. No, he said. I was heard. The mother's eyes filled with emotion she did not try to hide. Marcus wished them a good afternoon and walked toward his car. As he reached the driver's door, Captain Laura Bennett's unmarked sedan pulled into the lot. She stepped out, holding 2 cups of coffee. I hoped I would catch you here, she said. Marcus accepted one. Off duty. Trying to learn what that means, she replied. They stood for a moment facing the same stretch of pavement where pride had once mistaken itself for power. Bennett finally asked, how do you stay that calm? Marcus looked across the lot where strangers moved through ordinary errands, unaware of the history beneath their feet. Because anger is loud, he said, but truth lasts longer. He got into his car and drove away, leaving behind nothing dramatic at all. Sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is remain human when others forget how.